Hello and welcome back to Finding Your Niche. In today's episode, I shared a conversation with Liz Tunheim Sheets, the CMO at Tunheim. Liz is a University of Minnesota graduate and started her career working as a freelance marketer while working for Destination X Television back in the early 2000s. From there, she worked in experiential marketing for Best Buy and later worked as a social media manager at Spidertrap before ultimately coming back to work for Tunheim, the communications company that her mom, Kathy Tunheim, founded 30 years ago. I hope you enjoy. Liz, I'm stoked to have you on the show today. A fellow Minnesotan. I always love to see that. For those of you that don't know, we have Liz Sheets, the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, from Tunheim with us today. So Liz, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Jake. As you said, my name is Liz Sheets. My current position is Chief Marketing Officer at Tunheim. We're a communications consulting firm in Minneapolis, celebrating 30 years in business this year. I have been there about 8 years and have had a number of roles there, but the current one is actually really leading our growth, which includes marketing, but also thinking about business development.
Right on. Well, the one thing I always do is take it all the way back to the beginning. For you, the beginning is, well, before the beginning for a lot of people, because 30 years ago, your mom, Kathy, actually started Tunheim. So that was the beginning of your story. And then the beginning of your professional story probably happened when you got into college. So could you talk through your time at the U of M, by the way, go
Sure.
Gophers,
Yes.
and what you were thinking about as you were going through your academic experience there and where you hope to go?
Sure. Yes. So go Gophers, fellow Gopher. I went to what's now called the Hubbard School of Journalism at the University of Minnesota, SJMC, when I was there. And I knew pretty quickly into school that I wanted to do strategic communications. My mom, as you said, started Tunheim 30 years ago. So I really grew up around and in her office, learning about what she did, and was always a strong writer. So when I got to college and was taking classes, I just naturally really gravitated toward the School of Journalism and enjoyed the classes that I took there and doubled down and made public relations my focus. I did know, and this is in the Murphy Reporter, which is the School of Journalism's newsletter or magazine that they put out, say that I didn't want to follow in my mom's footsteps exactly. I wanted to do that kind of work, but I wanted to work in corporate America, which I had the chance to do prior to coming to Tunheim. But mostly it was because I wanted to chart my own path. I was seeing and learning about my mom's stature in the industry and really respected that and wanted the benefit of learning from her, and yet at the same time wanted to be able to chart my own path. So that was what was really important to me when I was graduating from the University of Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. And at the time, was Tunheim still what it is today, or was the company doing the same thing? Was it still strategic communications? And I mean, it sounds like it would have been an easy step for you to just step right into the business, and because the business does exactly what you were hoping to do coming out of college.
That is true. When I was between my freshman and sophomore year, I had my first internship, and it was at Tunheim. And I had no skills to do any kind of official communications on behalf of any businesses, but I did administrative work. I supported one executive admins and just kind of got used to what life in an office would be like. So I had a initial view, and then I had a few more internships through college. So I had the benefit of quite a few different workplaces before graduating, which I'm really grateful to have had. And through that experience, I got the benefit of just seeing how different workplaces and different work styles are there, I think it became clear to me that I needed to find my own way if I wanted to just feel strong in my own experience and my own capabilities. Whereas if I had started right at Tunheim, I think I would have felt, I'm not even sure how others would have felt, but I would have felt that I got there because of my relationship to my mom. Now, joining the company 8 years ago, she and I, when we speak together publicly, we talk about how the dynamic of our relationship is something that is somewhat disruptive in the way that people coming in are trying to figure out how we work together. It's really natural for us. I don't think that would have been true either had I started right out of college at Tunheim. Instead, coming in when I had a pretty strong sense of my own experience, I really, a big chunk of my career and learning became experiential marketing and digital marketing, which is different than what her experience was. So I bring some different skill sets just in the time that I was becoming a professional and growing. And so through that, I also have some differing skill sets that have benefited our organization, but also make it easier for our experience to work well together and be a trusted colleague instead of mom and daughter.
Yeah, so you graduated college and you wanted to pave your own path. So what did you do?
Well, my last year at the University of Minnesota, I could have graduated early, which did not sound like something I was ready to do. So I studied abroad my fall semester, my senior year in Milan, Italy, which was a wonderful experience. I had an internship there working for a magazine, which was very great experience, but it made me feel when I came back for my final semester, like I needed some adventure. So I actually moved to Los Angeles like a week after graduating. And I worked as a production assistant for a show that never made it on TV. But what we were trying to build was a show that also, this is going to be hard to imagine today because the internet and TV are so intermixed, but this was in 2006 when that was not a thing. Like, I don't even know if you remember this, but backgrounds on phones and ringtones were like as far as you could really go to engage someone in a TV show. But we were trying to build something where you could watch a show and you could actually, it was an adventure series. You could actually buy everything you saw on there and go on that adventure.
Cool.
It was just too complex at the time to make happen. But I learned a ton about the entertainment industry and just how dynamic things were changing and how digital was impacting that. But I knew pretty quickly I wanted to come back to Minnesota. So I came back here, worked for an independent record label as a publicist. So all of these things, I was tapping into the communications experience I had, but also some of the interests I had. I loved music, and so I found a passion of connecting my personal interests in music with the professional side of publicity. Learned a lot there and had a lot of fun with my professional colleagues there. And then kind of naturally realized I wanted more corporate experience. I wanted to feel not like I was making up what we were doing, which that's not to say that that's how it was, but I was young and I didn't have a lot of experience. I wanted some trusted, experienced professionals who could help me learn best practices, process, and really how to build out a large campaign. And I had the benefit of experience first at Target as a contractor, and then at Best Buy as a contractor, and later an employee in experiential marketing. And that was truly a wonderful experience.
Yeah. So what were you doing at Best Buy? That was something that immediately when I saw it just rang my bell.
Yeah. Well, I love Best Buy, so plugs to Best Buy. I worked, as I said, in experiential marketing, and throughout the course of being there, I supported a number of different business units and parts of our business through experiential marketing. So essentially, the easy way to explain it is there's a big operation for all of the things that happen in stores and online, but there are a lot of interactions that vendors want to do with Best Buy, with customers. And so our team brought those to life. So I didn't do this, but my colleagues put on big Madden events or big something for Xbox or whatever that would be. Or I did work with the music team. So when there were big releases coming out, we'd work with the artists and their record labels to make sure Best Buy was well promoted for a place to get that music. Now, of course, today that's very different because no one goes and buys CDs, but at the time that was still a big part of the business. So our work really supported, here's a product, how do we get that product in the hands of the customer so that they'll consider coming to Best Buy to buy that product. And that was really what we did. But I also worked a lot with customer relations and our government relations team. And so thinking about how Best Buy shows up in the communities that it has stores in, and how it's a good community member. So it was a really excellent experience, and I have a lot of love for Best Buy. I will also say my husband works at Best Buy, so
there you go.
I am still a yellow jager. Yes.
There you go. Well, you know, was that team, did that play into Best Buy reorganizing their stores, and I guess the way that they display like their computers and phones, like how you're able to interact with them there as well? Was that your team, or is that a different part of Best Buy?
That happened after I left. They actually made the store size even smaller, but no, there'd be a different team that does that. I think store design.
Yeah, falls into a similar category. So you got a lot of corporate experience.
And then I decided, well, at the time I was a heavy Twitter user, and seeing social media really blossom. One of the last projects I got to work on while I was at Best Buy was something called 12 Force, and it was a really excellent piece of technology that someone at Best Buy created that allowed anyone with a Best Buy email address to respond to someone on Twitter at the time, if on behalf of the @BestBuy Twitter handle. Now, today that wouldn't make sense either, but at the time, there wasn't a substantial social media team, and responding quickly was important to us, to our customers. So there was an opportunity to bring that to some shows to show how Best Buy was responding to customer needs. And I got to learn about that and that team that was fulfilling that at Best Buy. And through that, it just really became clear to me that I really wanted to work in digital marketing. And I left Best Buy and went to a firm called Spider Trap, where they gave me a chance to be a social media manager because I'd never done that before, but I'd had a lot of internal experience planning and being part of what social media might look like for our brand. And so I went there, and it was eye-opening for me being in an agency after being in the corporate side about especially a creative firm where we were building the tools to help organizations market themselves. I call it my back to school year. I feel like I was there for a very long time, and it really was a year, but the pace we worked was incredibly fast, and the people I worked with were incredibly smart, and I learned a ton. And then it wasn't my plan to go to Tunheim, but I'm going to end this story here. My colleague still today, who was an executive vice president at the time at Tunheim, came to me and shared that Tunheim was seeking digital marketing leadership. And would I be interested? And at first I said no. And after a lot of convincing, the time in my life that it was, I was about to get married and I was feeling ready to have a different pace. I made the leap to Tunheim, and I'm really glad that I did.
Yeah. Well, along the way, it sounds like you, as you mentioned before, you got in the story that you were developing skills that would pair really well with what Tunheim was already doing. How was that transition going from working in an agency and a corporate company like Best Buy to going back to working at, I don't know if it was your first job, but one of your first internships in college at the company that your mom started 30 years ago?
Let's see. When I first got there, I really wanted to be there on my own merit. And I think that took some time for colleagues to, one, see me not just as Kathy's daughter, but also build a rapport. The organization was also in its own transition. This is in 2012. We as an organization were evolving and needing to have some different skill sets than we'd had in the past. And so I was a bit disruptive coming in, and I was given the charge to be disruptive with my boss, the one who recruited me, not in a negative way, but in a way of, we need to change some things up, and feel free to do that. As a lesson or something that I can share with your listeners, being disruptive is, I did that. I took that license and I appreciated the ability to be disruptive. However, being the disruptor in an organization isn't always helpful. If I could go back and do it differently today, I'm not sure that I necessarily would or would need to, but if I did, I think I would have spent a little bit more time listening to people about what was important to them. And because I think I came with a lot of ideas that, and that was what I was hired to do. But at the same time, because of my relationship with the CEO and sole owner, I don't think I understood that dynamic as well. As looking backward, I can learn a lot from. I've always said that I took, up until coming to Tunheim, I always said that I took a path less traveled because I started with these kind of more startup, from the outside they look fun, organizations where we were trying to figure a lot of stuff out. It was very dynamic and I learned a ton. And then I went to corporate versus starting in a more corporate position and then going out. To what you said, I can see looking back that all of those experiences led me to being able to see in any of these different types of organizations and different sizes, opportunities where I make connections to what they're going through, to something I've seen in one of those other experiences. And so I guess I'm just grateful for all of that experience because it comes up for me still a lot.
So,
and to your listeners, I would say be open that there's something that you're learning that you might think is incredibly boring, or you're not sure how it will fit later, that look back and be able to say, hey, I'm really glad that I learned that skill because I'm bringing it back, or I'm teaching somebody else to do that too.
Yeah, that's a personal battle I'm having with myself right now. I've pretty much only worked for smaller companies, some startups, some not. And a few people have said you should really try and go work for a big corporate organization because they know how to run things really, really well, and they know how to optimize. And then I'm sure there's probably a lot of bureaucracy, but that's just a personal internal conflict that I have. So 2 questions for you. One, what are your thoughts on that? Which side of the aisle do you sit on? And then the second question would be, which do you prefer?
Right. Great questions. And these are going to come from my personal perspective because I have a lot of friends who we've had this conversation and they would say the opposite. So you'll have to make the decision for you. But what I loved about being in a big corporation, even as a contractor, both at Target and and my Target time was pretty short, but it gave me a wonderful taste, especially when you talk about great process, amazing brand, strength of brand. I miss owning and feeling ownership of a brand. I loved Best Buy and was proud to be at Target and represent those brands. And because they're well known, when you share what you do, people tend to understand it, or at least they have an understanding from their perspective of what that means. And it that part was my favorite part of working, especially at Best Buy, which was a longer period of time. There is a lot more bureaucracy, although I think corporate America and every company is going to be different. So they all have their own cultures. I think there's a generational change happening too, where there's coming out of right now, honestly, I think there's going to be a lot less, this is how we do things, because COVID has shown us actually what we've always done may not always be the right thing. So
yeah, it's interesting.
We can question things, but there's a lot of process for good reason. And because these big organizations have a lot of risk, and managing that risk and the operations that they need to do, that's not something to take lightly. There's a lot of really excellent people, experienced professionals, creative people within those brands that bring the work to life. And learning from those professionals and creating relationships across many myriad parts of a company where you're trying to work through how you work together on getting something accomplished. I have some of my best work friends who came out of my experience there because you're working on that together. The agency side is different because you don't own the brand, and you're usually taking on something that is challenging, or it needs to get done, but it's not the highest priority. So depending on the type of agency work that you're doing, you're finding your way through something and helping someone on the inside of an organization be successful. And so what I love about it now, and Tunheim is pretty consultative. So we're having, whether it's bringing research or insights that help with decision making, or writing messaging and creating tactics, the tools to help tell your story, or developing website with social media content to push out to bring something to life, whatever aspect of it, we're taking this on behalf of someone. And I don't take that lightly, because we want our clients to look good. We want them to get the results that are important to them. We don't feel those results as much as they do. Well, we do, and we take it really seriously. Getting those results is probably one of our more important objectives of our metrics. But at the same time, they're the ones who are it's going to be deemed successful or not successful based on what we do. So you're borrowing in some way, and trying to help someone else be successful. And I really love it, because I get to have my hands on a lot of different things and learn, I'm a curious person. If I'm not learning, I'm ready for a new opportunity. I've had the chance at Tunheim in 8 years to learn a lot and keep learning, because our clients change, or just ready for a new opportunity. So somebody else gets the chance to learn in a role that you've previously been in. And I appreciate that about our culture. So to ask, which one do I like better? I wouldn't trade any of the past experience that I have. I wouldn't also count it out that someday I'll find myself back on the client side, whether it's for not necessarily in a big corporation, it could be a smaller one. We'll see. But for now, and what I've just really appreciated is the chance to be on a team of people who are really supportive of each other and want to do great work together. And that's what we wake up and do for our clients each day. And I'm really inspired by that right now.
Do you feel like you found your personal niche?
Yeah, at least, again, for now, in that
this isn't it's not a written contract, by the way.
Right. Yes, in the sense that I really love, and now have a lot of experience understanding communications, and think that it's really exciting, all the change that's happening in my industry, and frankly, all industries in business right now. And so the challenge and change that's coming up in the business world is really interesting, but also really disruptive. And so being on a team of people who want to work together and do interesting work and aren't intimidated by trying new things is really inspiring, because nobody's doing it on their own. Like you have a group of people who are thinking it through together. And I'm an outward processor. I like thinking through solutions. I'm an old millennial. So I like the dynamic of a team, because I think a team solution is going to be stronger than any one individual's view. And given how dynamic the world is right now, that's the part that I'm really excited about. And because I feel comfortable in the communication tools, it's easier to feel strength in that.
Well, you couldn't have queued up this last question better. So the final question that I like to ask all my guests is about white space. And this is going to be great for you because you've dealt with a lot of brands. What is one thing right now that companies are underutilizing as it applies to marketing?
It's a good question. Brands do a lot of listening, so it's a little bit unfair to say listening, but I think we're in a time of so much dynamic change that any research that you do is going to be old tomorrow because what people are feeling and thinking today is going to change. And so I think what I've been trying to do, and I encourage it to clients as well, is I'm trying to listen rather than think I have to speak. I think, especially in the last month, there have been a lot of brands who felt the need to say something, and some of them were probably right too. And for others, listening and learning right now and recalibrating is going to be important, because the world on the other side of COVID-19, on the other side of just so much challenge and change right now, is going to be different, and it needs to be different. And so that's a wonderful opportunity to step back and say, what do we look like on the other side of this? And employees should drive that. Customers should drive that. Whomever those most important stakeholders are, they should be the ones who help drive that.
That's really great advice, Liz. Well, that was my last question for you. Thank you for coming on the show, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thanks to your listeners. You can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter.
I will. I'll tag both of those in the show notes. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake.
You betcha. Hey, podcast fans, thanks for listening to today's episode of Finding Your Niche. If you have any feedback for me, please shoot me a text or reach out to me on LinkedIn. Hope you all have a great week.